Hi guys, welcome to Nate's Chop Shop. So I got my old go-kart back. My first race cart I ever had, the same one that the videos on this channel, the older videos are. I got it back. It's got a built Dover flathead on it. It's been sitting with fuel in the carburetor for a couple of years, but we cleaned it up and we took it to the racetrack this weekend and we ran it. The carburetor's garbage. It's just done for. The motor, however, seems to be plenty strong. So let me see if I can switch this around and I'll show you what's going on. So there she is, the OG. The one time I actually raced it years ago, it was number 187, so we just went back with that. My daughter's actually driving it now. This is an old body a friend of mine gave me, so I went ahead and mounted it up. I built some brackets on the Nerf bars. This is a old, I think, Comet cart from the 70s, but you can kind of see what I did there. I just made some brackets and mounted it up where the body could be mounted on it. But it's a good handling old cart and it's a good running old motor. But I've got the old flathead here with a horseman head and, you know, header and all kinds of billet stuff, a great big cam and big valves and all that nonsense. I had Dover Power build it for me, and I really recommend them. They did a fantastic job on this engine. But here's the offending carburetor. You know, it's an antique. I mean, everything you're looking at here with this carburetor on it, you know, this thing is, honest to God, 40 plus years old. I mean, it's about as vintage as they get. So I'm going to keep this stuff because, being as how this was my first race cart, I do intend to restore it at some point. But what I've done to solve my carburetor issue is I got this little thing, which I call them Chai-Coonies. It's a PWK 28mm flat slide. It's a Mikuni clone. And I've been looking, and nobody sells an intake that I can see that will make that fit that. So I guess I'm gonna have to make one. So here we go. So I was needing an intake for this Briggs and Stratton, and I couldn't find one. So I went to my local hardware store. $4 later, I got an intake. Some assembly required. But something I've already done is this washer, I ground the inside of it out. So that pokes through just a little bit, and when I put it together, I'm going to angle it just a little bit so that it moves the carburetor off away from the exhaust, because I don't want it to get hot. And this is simply a water fitting. It's like for a water pump. It screws in, but the reason I went with that is it has a pretty smooth transition inside, because the 28mm carburetor is bigger than the Briggs and Stratton intake, and this, wow, fits pretty good. So I mean, I'll have to fine tune it just a little bit, but it's not too big of a deal. And then my rubber boot for my Mikuni fits pretty good over this. So we'll be cutting this off probably around here, and then it'll hose clamp on here to seal. This will bolt onto the engine. And this washer that I dropped, what I'll do is after I get it all welded together, I'll use the gasket as a template and make the holes and the shapes I need, and then we'll put it all on there and see if it works. Okay, so I got her all welded up, as you can see here, and I went inside and cleaned that up, and I've got a pretty nice little surface grinder, a pretty nice little finish grinder, so I went ahead and smoothed my weld off with that up here, and like here, As you can see, we are sized just about right. So now, since I built a little cattywampus into it, I've got to take it home and fit it on the go-kart because I forgot which way the gasket sits. I think it's like that, but I'm not going to take that chance. So I want it to coat out away from the exhaust, so I have to set that up, and then I can go ahead and finish this piece out. And then I just need to trim this off and clamp everything together and see if it runs. Okay, so we got the intake pretty well finished. It seems it's going to work as it should. I don't know which way this thing goes. Yeah, there it is. Shape worked out good, size worked out good. I had to kind of grind some little flat tapers into the side of it there to clearance bolts, because the throat diameter here is so much bigger than what we were dealing with. But I think that's a good thing, because we're basically going to be using the whole port. And also, the bolts that I had were a little long and the head was a little bit big. So I cut them off and you know, tapered a little bit so they'd start. And then I chucked them up in a drill and I made the heads a little bit smaller so that they'll fit in there, and it just barely fits next to that intake. So I mean, we have as big of an intake as we can put on this engine, period. I mean, there's no getting bigger. So now I get it. Oh, and I also had to take my Allen wrench and trim it off. It was about that long, but I had to modify it just a little bit to make it fit. Okay, so check it out. It works. We got the new intake all mounted up, and then we've got this little rubber boot that just slips on the front of the carburetor. You know, and that's what holds the, obviously what holds the carburetor onto whatever, and then that just slips on there. So it's a little bit of a loose fit, but that's okay. It'll clamp down, it'll be fine. But I'm gonna have to go to town, get a couple of clamps, get a throttle cable, and then we will drill some jets out, because something I haven't mentioned up until now is I'm going straight to methanol with this carburetor. So I'm gonna go ahead and convert this carburetor also while we're at it, because, well, frankly, we're racing, and we like to race with methanol. It's a good fuel, makes good power, and this is a pretty strong little motor, so you know, it's better off on methanol, or it's going to be some really expensive race gas. So actually, it's more economical in the long run to run methanol. But anyway, back in a little bit. Okay, so it works. I jetted on it. I did that off camera because, you know, it was a lot of hit and miss stuff. It came with an extra pilot jet. I started out, my first guess on the pilot jet was too big, and my drill bits were dull, and I broke a drill bit off in the second one. So it's too rich on the pilot, but the main's about right. So we're gonna run it. I'm gonna start it up for you here, and then I'm gonna rip it around a little bit and show that it works. So here we go.
as you can see, it works. I think I still need to do a little more jetting on it after that ride. It was a little slow to pick up on the main, it seemed like, so maybe fatten it up a little bit. I don't know, it's trial and error. We'll get it sorted out. But anyway, it works. We've got a 28mm flat slide, Mikuni clone on a 5-horse Briggs and Stratton for less than $100 total investment. Now, I could have gotten the air filter and the throttle cable cheaper had I got them online, but I wanted them now. So I went to the local motorcycle shop, and throttle cable, air cleaner, and clamps were $47. So 28 bucks for the carb, $4 for the stuff for the intake, and bottom line, I'm in this for less than 100 bucks, 28 flat slide on alcohol on a Briggs.